once again, I'm here, and I'm really, very happy to speak on a molecule that has brought smiles on many of our patients of endometriosis. And it's a very exciting topic because I want you all to, at the end of my talk, judge really whether it is a miracle molecule. Now, let us understand that this endometriosis, Dr. Ramani also said, is such a very complex disease that reproduct in the lady's life, both in reproductive life or even otherwise, adolescence. So, what type of molecule will be required to treat our patients? It has to be a long term. Side effects have to be minimal, and we know the main impacts of infertility, this endometriosis is pain and infertility. So we want that molecule to act on these impacts, and we have seen with many other molecules or medicines that we have, like GnRH, analog, danazol, all these things. There's a lot of depletion of estrogen in the body, in the sense complete depletion of the estrogen. So if you want to really get a good success in the management of medical management, we need the estrogen levels to go down. But then we can have a little bit too, so that we don't get, we don't have to do the add backs and all that. Also, it should be acting on the peritoneal implants, endometriomas. The most important, it should also give minimal recurrence. So when we come to the medical treatments, combined oral contraceptives and progestins, especially Dynogest, they come under what we call as the first line of treatment. And then the second line, we have danazole and GnRH agonist. So now danazole, we do not really use it too much now because the side effects we all know. Coming to progestins and endometriosis, they have been proven that they have a lot of anti-inflammatory effect, and we all know that in endometriosis there's so much inflammation because the endometrial glands are in a ectopic place, and when there's something ectopic in the body defends and causes the inflammatory action. So this progestin is also very ideal for a very long-term treatment, which I already told that we should have for it, because it's a chronic disease. The other thing is it is a progressive disease. This molecule which we would like to give to our patients has to be effective, inexpensive, easily available, and well tolerated by the patients. Now, what could be some of the side effects of progestins? Anovulation, hypoestrogenism, bleeding abnormalities, bloating, and weight gain. Now, SUTC has recommended use of this progesterone may be considered as first line, and when we suspect endometriosis also, it's said, some of the studies say when we suspect endometriosis, we can give this progestins and see that whether the disease per se reduces, the intensity of the pain reduces, etc. And for this purpose, we could also have oral contraceptives or continuous or cyclic, but then in case if we will have to go for laparoscopy for diagnosis. But when we give Dynogest, generally there's a suppression, and also the implants, etc., whatever disease per se is there in the body, that also gets suppressed. So now a little bit of this unique progestin, the molecule itself has an additional double bond and cyanomethyl instead of an ethanyl group in the 17 alpha position. And what is it? It's a 19 not testosterone derivative. You have to understand this because we'll understand later on how not testosterone helps. And then the special chemical structure of this Dynogest will lead to unique pharmacological profile. Not testosterone and progesterone derivatives. Now a little bit of mode of action. Very happy to tell that it has action both central and local. And here you can see on the schematic side that it has effect on hypothalamus, pituitary glands, estrogen and progesterone negative feedback, It acts on the gonadotropins, then ultimately on the uterus, ovaries, there where the estrogen and progesterone are produced, and then also on the endometrium. Now it has local effects also. It has anti-proliferative, anti-inflammatory, and anti-angiogenic. Some, pharmacokinetics we should know when we are giving some molecule to our patients. So bioavailability is 96%. The concentration, the maximum concentration is 2.5 hours. Protein binding is 90%. Half-life is 9 hours, quite a considerable time. And also metabolism is in the liver, elimination is from the renal system. Now, what is it? How do we give this for the medical management? It's a continuous use progesterone. So, what I told you in the first slide, we need to give for a continuous period because it's progressive chronic disease. So, we can give it. And by now, the ISHRI and other societies from the Canada, etc., they have evaluated thousands and thousands of women and seen that is safe, tolerable, and very efficacious in the treatment of endometriosis. See, we just can't say that I did this many cases and all that, or Dr. Ramani or Dr. Sanjeev could. No, we have to have a lot of medical evidence, and all that show that it's quite safe to use it. Now, what's the dosage? 1 tablet daily for minimum 3 months, but here it's a very important thing that you can continuously give this for 5 years. Actually, this is a paper from Japan which says 65 months. And you can start it from any day of the menstrual cycle. Best part, you can take with or without food. So not much of restrictions as far as how to take it. Now, let us compare the cost of treatment here. There's this one drug which competes with Dynogest, and that is, we all know, GnRH analog deposit, agonist deposit. So they are injection form. So even though it is minimally invasive, but it is invasive, and these are orally we can take it. At the for a country like us, India, every penny really matters. So when we talk of 1 month of GnRH agonist depot, it's 4,000 rupees, whereas Dynogest is just 630. There may be mild variations between company to company, pharma companies, but then at the end, it's less than it is just less than 45 rupees per day, and GnRH analog is 143 rupees per day. So that's quite a bit for our developing country. Now, what about now? I'll come one by one. We'll see how we can use. Now, let us come to pain, because as mostly all the endometriosis patients, most of them, some may be asymptomatic, but most of them have pain. So how can we use for pain? Here, ISHRI has recommended for different molecules, but what it says is Dynogest is recommended as grade A. So we can give it without any worry. How much of Dynogest is necessary for pain relief? It's just 2 milligrams. It significantly reduces the pain compared with the placebo. Okay, now coming to this Dynogest, it not only alters or it has the effects on the utopic endometrium, that is the endometrium which is not pathological, but as well as ectopic endometrium. So what it does in the utopic, reduce cell proliferation, reduce in bleeding. And in ectopic endometrium, there's anti-angiogenic effects. Because of this, there is a decrease in the VEGF, and also there is a immunomodulatory effect, decrease in TNF-alpha-A. Now, anti-inflammatory effects decreases prostaglandins, and because of the decrease in the prostaglandins, the pain decreases. Now, we can use 2 milligrams or 4 milligrams. There are various studies, and this score was done at the end by a laparoscopy 24 weeks later. So what happens with Dynogest is it also decreases the pain during sexual intercourse from 52% to 6%. So it is so efficient. Then the rates of premenstrual pain, dysmenorrhea, diffuse pelvic pain also decreased. So ultimately, the study concluded that it's very effective in pain relief, and what they also concluded was just 2 milligram was enough for this. That's the lowest effective dose. You can't give less than that, 1 milligram. There's no need to give 4 milligrams. For pain, remember 2 milligrams. Yeah, so decreasing pain is there with in this study, decreasing pain, bleeding irregularities, but the patient has to continue the treatment. And once you stop the treatment, the decrease of pelvic pain persisted at least for 24 weeks. So that is really admirable. Once again, when we compare with the GnRH agonist, most commonly all of us are using leuprolide acetate. So Dynogest is equally effective when compared to GnRH agonist, reducing the pain score. Now we come to the infertility part. What about infertility? Can Dynogest help in infertility, or what does it do? We need to have a very clear concept, because we are giving some this molecule which we are thinking that is a miracle molecule. So this is one study, very interesting. I'll just tell you the conclusion of this study. Use of Dynogest prior to IVF did not improve the clinical outcomes. It's very important. Suppression of follicle growth and induction of follicular atresia by this progesterone. Ovarian stimulation was, in this study, what they did was they started the stimulation protocol immediately after DNG treatment. Okay, and so according to the conclusion of this study, they say that some interval between the Dynogest treatment and ovarian stimulation may be necessary for these follicles to then develop and give proper oocytes, and so that they can respond to the FSH gonadotropin stimulation. Now, what about Dynogest treatment for ovarian endometrioma removal in infertile women prior to IVF? So, once again, this study confirms the necessity of pre-cycle medical interventions like Dynogest in women with ovarian forms of endometriosis undergoing IVF. So, there is definitely a positive role. What about adenomyosis? This is a very nice article from Japan, the clinical outcomes of infertility treatment with adenomyosis. You know, adenomyosis is such a thing that we do not know much about it. So the management policy for adenomyosis is not established, and also the pregnancy rate of infertility treatment for this endometriosis, adenomyosis, etc. is around 40%. But there's no data till now to suggest that medication or surgery as a pre-treatment for adenomyosis increase the pregnancy rate in infertile women. There are some reports suggesting that GnRH agonist before surgery, before IVF is very promising in adenoma. You know, there are always conflicting reports, but we need to take the maximum reports. Now we come to Dynogest and ovulation. What about this? So here you can see that after giving 2 milligrams of Dynogest in the first phase, that is till 36 days, and in the second phase, that is 72 days, the phase is the duration. So there's an inhibition of ovulation with 2 milligram of Dynogest. Now again here, the endometrial growth, the substantial suppression of endometrial growth even with the lowest dose, and the results also indicate a potent endometrial effect of Dynogest. So now we do have to understand the direct ovarian estradiol inhibition, but only weak gonadotropin inhibition. What do you mean by this? That means Dynogest has a good effect on the ovaries and so the E2 levels are inhibited. But when we come to the LH, FSH, peak, etc., they are not inhibited to that amount. And then also the apoptosis of granulosa cell of dominant follicle leading to increase of the E2 levels, and FSH levels are maintained, but there's apoptosis, but FSH levels are maintained. So strong peripheral effects inhibiting estradiol production. That is very important in this disease of endometriosis. Now, let us understand, because we want to give this medicine, which is not very expensive to our patients. So what if we give before doing any infertility treatment, stop it? After how much of time can we do our ART or IVF, etc.? So an LS surge of urine, in this study, LS surge in the urine was identified during follow-up between 1 and 43 days of cessation of treatment. And progesterone concentration was above 1.6 nanogram per ml, which is an indicator of ovulation. So 43 days. Then the number, when does the menstruation return? That was around between 30 and 12 days, plus minus 12 days. So both ovulation returns and also patient has menstruation. This is very interesting. This already I told you your Dynogest versus GnRH, but the other problem with GnRH is that the GnRH causes a decline in the estrogen so much that there is a bone loss, DMD loss, the hot flashes, so the patient goes into a pseudo-menopausal state. Whereas Dynogest you can give without any worry, because when you give Dynogest, some percentage, I think it is around 33% of estrogen still in the body, preventing all the complications of severe hypoestrogenemia. Now we come to endometrioma. Endometrioma is very commonly seen, it's diagnosed by all the junior gynecologists also. It's very easy to diagnose, sonography, etc., and it's very common. So now I just read the conclusion. This is very recent study. For the treatment of endometriomas, can we avoid surgery? So it appears to be reducing the size of endometriomas and related symptoms with a greater effect on the symptoms relief and higher tolerability in women treated with Dynogest. Now here I want to tell you one of my personal experience where I had a girl who had infertility with big endometriomas on both the sides, around 7-8 centimeters. She did not want to undergo surgery. She did not want any injectables, and that time Dynogest was not so much popular when this patient had. So I started her off with Dynogest, and then she took for quite some time, maybe 6 months or 8 months. And then when she came back, I saw that the endometriomas are considerably, diminished in size. So then I told her, okay, you come maybe in next month or after that, we'll start with IVF, and we will see that you have a baby. That girl disappeared, lady. She came after 1 year. And when she came after 1 year, there were the endometriomas all over again. So this is all reversible. So we have to advise our patients for consistency in taking the medicines, consistency in the long-term this thing. And when it comes to IVF, ART, infertility management, we have to tell them where to stop and where to start, because then again the disease per se comes back. Now I'll talk a little bit of recurrence. Dr. Ramani has so beautifully told about Dynogest also regarding recurrence and all that. So prolonged daily administration by surgery was associated with lower recurrence rate of ovarian endometrioma and reduced painful and symptoms. So after surgery, we need to give Dynogest. So that will be very helpful. That is, this is also quite a new 2018 article. And yeah, what about other application? I'll now go a little fast. It has a place in therapy for most of the postmenopausal ladies who don't want to have this LNG IUD. And you know, Ramani also told about DUB, etc. So heavy menstrual bleeding in sexually active women, heavy menstrual bleeding in non-sexually active women, heavy menstrual bleeding in women who plan to conceive in the upcoming year. I'm just telling about the Dynogest in this and these other indications also, just to complete it. And heavy menstrual bleeding in women with concomitant condition. Dosage and administration in these patients, one tablet daily for 21 consecutive days, and then same time they have to take with some liquid, etc. And supposing they can start with any time, but it will be written on the blister. On that day they have to start, and then once the 21 tablets have been taken, they have to take rest for 7 days without pill free. And whether or not a bleed has occurred, the new blister pack is initiated after 7 days, 7 treatment-free days. So the contraceptive protection also occurs during the 7 intake process. So during that 7 days, if you're worried, oh, she may conceive, no, she has the contraceptive protection. Now, $1,000,000 question, we said such good things about Dynogest. Is there something somewhere where we can't do some contraindications? So, arterial thromboembolism risk, venous thromboembolism, risk of cardiovascular events, older age, hypertension, smoking, diabetes, severe hepatic diseases, history of liver tumors or sex hormone dependent malignancies. These are the contraindications of Dynogest. If polycystic jaundice or pruritus develop, Dynogest should be stopped. Once again, cerebrovascular disease, current stroke, history of stroke or prodromal condition, transient ischemic attack. Migraine, neurological symptoms, vaginal bleeding, which is undiagnosed amenorrhea, hypersensitivity to any active substance, pregnancy, we should not use it, and we should confirm that there's no pregnancy when we're starting this medicine. Lactation, we should not be using during lactation period. Compliance, this was also told by Dr. Ramani, 98%, dear friends. And discontinuation rates due to adverse events or lack of efficacy were both low, 2.4 and 0.6%. Patient satisfaction. Patient satisfaction is 90%. What else do you need? I think doctor satisfaction is really much more than this. So 90% of women responding to when we ask them, would you like to take Dynogest again? They will say certainly willing, or would prefer to other medicines or injections, etc. They would prefer to use Dynogest again. I think this gives real credit to Dynogest when patients want to take the medicines. Yeah, with this.